first video in this series, which introduces basic information on mental health in the workplace, is based on a series of videos that were developed by the City of Ottawa to address mental health issues in the workplace. I'd like to thank the City of Ottawa for providing access to these excellent videos that we at the Bob Rumble Canadian Centre of Excellence for the Deaf have adapted to ensure full access for deaf persons. ASL LSQ interpretation has been added to each topic in the videos to ensure full accessibility to deaf persons. What I'd like to do now is to provide a general background on deafness that is designed to be of use to any employer that employs deaf persons or who serve deaf persons and who are concerned with maintaining an optimum mental health environment in the workplace. First, I'll provide a brief background on deafness and hearing loss, with a focus on the issue of mental health and wellness. Hearing loss and deafness are complex phenomena that do not lend themselves to easy definitions. Hearing loss itself is on a scale called a decibel scale, which ranges from 0 to 120 decibels. The range of hearing loss covers normal, mild, moderate, severe, and profound hearing loss at a range of frequencies from 500 Hertz, which are low tones, to 8,000 Hertz, which are high tones. Audiologists are the professionals that measure hearing loss under standard conditions, and the results of the hearing evaluation are given in a chart called an audiogram. While all degrees of hearing loss can have important impacts on many aspects of daily life, including mental health, the focus of the present video is with deaf people who have severe to profound hearing loss, most often sustained at birth or early in development. Most people who use sign language as their primary means of communication spell deaf with a capital D to affirm their identity with deaf culture. Approximately 1 in 1,000 persons are deaf. Other groups with significant hearing loss are the hard of hearing and late deafened individuals. Late onset hearing loss can occur suddenly or often evolves as a part of the aging process. Hard of hearing and late deafened individuals also have special needs, and more information on these groups can be found in the reference section at the end of this video. As mentioned earlier, the focus in this background video is with deaf people who rely on some form of sign language, most often American Sign Language, or ASL, or Langue des Signes Québécois, LSQ. Understanding the realities of sign language and deaf culture is the key to the maintenance of a healthy environment and the provision of mental health services to deaf people in any circumstance. Understanding deaf culture and the important role that sign language plays is the key to harm prevention in any workplace where deaf individuals work or where deaf individuals are being served. It is important in this context to ensure that all communication that takes place in the course of mental health and wellness in the workplace involves sign languages. For the present purposes, that would be ASL for the Anglophone population or LSQ for the Francophone population. In most cases, full communication is ensured through the use of a specially trained and certified sign language interpreter. The provision of interpreting and interpretation ensures that the deaf person can communicate and interact in the workplace with the service provider in a meaningful way, thus contributing to overall wellness and mental health. The ideal situation occurs when workers in the workplace can sign themselves, thus eliminating the need for the interpreter. However, in many workplaces, there may be only one or two deaf workers, and thus the use of interpreters, where appropriate, is very necessary. In many workplaces where there are a minority of deaf workers, it is often useful to offer introductory sign language and general deaf awareness classes for interested workers. Hearing workers' participation in such classes can have a very positive effect on the deaf worker, and such classes have proven to be mutually beneficial to deaf and hearing workers alike. I note that it is important not only for frontline workers to become more aware of the realities of deafness, but this applies equally to middle and senior management. Everyone's mental health and well-being is enhanced by deaf awareness programs. I turn now more specifically to mental health issues, which may arise in the workplace in the context of deaf workers or deaf individuals that may be served by an organization. It's very important to note that the concepts of mental health and mental illness have a long and troubling past for many deaf people. The use of the now outdated, even offensive term, deaf and dumb or deaf mute can be very disturbing to deaf people and their families. The use of these terms reaches back to a time when deaf people were thought to have limited intelligence, and deafness itself was often thought to be a mental health condition. A number of studies have now been completed that suggest that the occurrence of mental health conditions in the deaf population is up to 3 times greater than in the hearing population. All of these studies of mental health and deafness attribute this higher prevalence of mental health conditions to environmental conditions due to negative early experiences in education and to negative conditions in society in general. Hearing loss by itself, however severe, does not cause a mental health condition for deaf people. The problem lies with the way the society views deafness and deaf people. Deaf people in the workplace need the same level of support as their hearing colleagues. Deaf people can experience the full range of mental health conditions, and they are entitled to receive the same services as their hearing counterparts. Apart from general deaf awareness suggestion that I've already mentioned, any services offered to deaf people, either as workers or as clients of an organization, need to incorporate special accommodations. In particular, the professionals who are engaged to serve the deaf worker need to have specialized knowledge of deafness. They need to know deaf realities and deaf culture. Professionals need to know when and how to use a sign language interpreter. Unfortunately, at the present time, there are few such professionals available. At the present time, there is a pressing need to increase the numbers of such trained professionals who may themselves be deaf and know about deafness firsthand. In this context, it is sometimes necessary to employ the services of a specially trained deaf interpreter, or DI, who can provide additional insight and communication expertise. It's important to note that the simple use of interpreters, even deaf interpreters, by itself is often not adequate to ensure complete communication and effective provision of a mental health service in the context of the workplace. Professionals who assist with mental health issues in the workplace, at the very least, need to know about the differential impact of different degrees of deafness, age of onset of deafness, the possibility of multiple disabilities, such as deafblindness, and many other factors. Also, other factors, such as the usefulness of hearing aids, the efficacy of lip reading, the benefits and limitations of cochlear implants, need to be understood. Professionals also need to be aware of the impact of early communication deprivation due to limited and even failed educational policies of the past. It's essential for professionals in the mental health field to be aware of the special issues that many, if not most, deaf people experience. Professionals serving deaf people with workplace issues need to know that reading and writing are often not an effective means of communication. So standard workplace mental health information materials may be very confusing and ineffective. Equally important, however, is to take proactive steps in order to acquire basic knowledge about deafness and deaf people, so that proactive workplace programs aimed at ensuring optimal mental health and wellness for all workers, both deaf and hearing, can be effective. The establishment of partnerships with agencies such as the Bob Rumpel Canadian Centre of Excellence for the Deaf is one way to start. BRCCED is happy to share its expertise in workplace mental health issues with deaf people with other organizations. And at the same time, BRCCED is open to developing creative partnerships with agencies who employ deaf persons or who provide services to deaf persons. We can all learn from each other in our efforts to provide healthy workplaces that are fully inclusive and at the same time are committed to achieving an optimal level of mental health and wellness in the workplace. For further information about deafness and mental health for deaf persons, please see the references at the end of this video. And for further information regarding mental health and wellness issues in the workplace, please contact the Bob Rumpel Canadian Centre of Excellence for the Deaf. Thank you.